everything that Donald Trump does is a real estate negotiation. You can understand it clearer than anything else if you just understand that this guy is haggling for the price of concrete at every moment, no matter what he is doing and no matter how serious the stakes are, especially for people who follow politics.
This is the Ground Game Podcast, where we cover politics from the ground up. Here are your hosts, Tom LoBianco and Patrick Pfingsten.
Back. Did you miss me?
Where'd you go? From sea to shining sea?
Yeah, something like that. No,
Across
we had a
the
baby.
golden plain.
We had a baby, okay? I've been busy. I've been up to my arms in diapers. And not pretty ones, okay?
Literal poo as opposed to what I'm dealing with here in Washington.
I'm dealing with it too here. I'm just happen to not be in Washington. Welcome all to the Ground Game Podcast. I'm Patrick Pfingsten. He's Tom LoBianco. I'm a longtime political consultant type who now hosts a radio show and a podcast and all that stuff, writes a newsletter. Tom's a legitimate reporter, writes 24 site, 24sight.news, has worked in his dying establishment media for years. We are so glad you're here. We are back for 2025. Crazy shit happening everywhere. We are getting into it, baby. How you doing? How was your holiday?
It's good, man. It's good. You know,
thanks for holding down the fort while I was gone.
Yeah,
couple of good shows.
You know, it's pretty good. It wasn't as spicy as interesting as it usually is, but you know,
Rick Wilson's pretty spicy.
That was a wild one. We'll get him back. His analysis about what happens to certain body parts when you start trying to shut down Pentagon programs.
He has a way with words, that Rick Wilson. that forked tongue from Tallahassee. All right, so it's January 8th as we record this. Mike Johnson's the Speaker of the House again for now. We'll talk about that coming up. The January 6th counting of the votes, certification of the vote went without a hitch like it should. Amazing how if you count the votes and you don't have to like overthrow the government at the same time. Imagine that.
I didn't see Joe Biden storming the Capitol.
I don't know if he can storm a box of wheat thins at this point.
He did storm the pardons and the presidential medals. I'll tell you about that though.
You were at the Capitol for the Johnson vote. Were you surprised at how it went down?
No.
We'll get into Johnson, but I interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah. It's chill.
It's all chill.
Yeah, man.
BC chill with its fence around the Capitol.
You know what it is, man. You got little kids. All right. When you give them what they want, they stop screaming.
Not to mention there's an inauguration in 12 days. Will it be a future for America, or will it be more American carnage? Stay tuned. Find out. Film at 11. It's going to be a wild year. It's going to be a wild year, and I'm glad we're back. I'm happy to be doing it with you, Tom. And what do you say we get into this?
Let's do
it. First down.
All right, this one's for me, because I am fired up about Donald Trump's distractions. Donald Trump has been so focused in the last few days on Greenland, on the Panama Canal, on making Canada the 51st state and embarrassing Justin Trudeau, who was likely to get his ass kicked in an election later this year anyway, to a guy named Pierre Poilievre, who's likely going to be the next prime minister.
Okay.
And now he wants to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, or the Gulf of Trump, or whatever it might be.
Sure.
Here's the thing. The media, your boys in the media, your people, your humans, loving this stuff. Loving this stuff. Crazy about this stuff. Because if there's a shiny object that Donald Trump can distract you to, they want to be all over it.
Yeah.
He
plays legacy press like a fiddle.
I implore the normal people out there, don't pay attention to this bullshit. Don't pay attention to this, because this is not real. Greenland isn't real.
Canada.
The Panama Canal isn't real. We don't want the Quebecois.
Nobody wants them.
Nobody wants them. The French sure didn't want them.
They could stay. They'll be the whatever, the Guam or Puerto Rico of this extended thing.
And certainly there's no function of changing the name of a body of water. Okay. So let's just be real here that none of this is real. None of this matters. Donald Trump is trying to distract from the real stuff that's happening. He's trying to distract from the fact that Pete Hegseth is completely unqualified to be Secretary of Defense. He is trying to distract from the fact that Kash Patel is a frickin' wacko. He's trying to distract from the fact that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has no business in government. He's trying to distract from the fact that Elon Musk is actually running the show while Trump isn't. He's trying to distract from his hush money trial. He's trying to distract from all of the important things that are actually happening in this country, in his future administration, in this world. People need to not fall for the crazy.
Man, you're on the front lines. You're farther north than I am. I mean, you could be called into service to storm the Canada.
I'm old and fat. I'm not storming anything.
You never know, man. Might turn out to be like Russia, where they start dipping into the prisons. You know,
they're gonna be flinging maple syrup at us from moose. The Mounties on a moose.
It's Trump. I mean, you know what? Like, I think the press will change on this to the extent that they can. I mean, a couple of things on this. You know, look, these are my friends and colleagues. All right, you know, I'm on the outside now doing the content creator, news influencer thing. Do be sure to buy these Nikes that I'm selling over here. Make sure I get that referral. And you know, if you need like you know, multivitamins or gold or silver, more so the gold, be sure to use the code proper financial planning via 24 site at checkout. Okay. Guaranteed. All right. That's all very good stuff. All right.
Are you going to sell Bibles too? The Tom LoBianco branded Greek Orthodox Bible?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, man. That's right. It starts off with a couple short stories from Stephen King. You know.
I want to make sure people just don't get distracted by the shiny object. That happened so much the first time around. I want to make sure it doesn't happen this time. All right. Ready?
Yeah.
It's second down.
All right. So are Democrats dropping the resistance? It sure seems like, I mean, you remember this time 4 years ago when we were, well, this time 4 years ago, the Capitol was still smoldering. So that's probably not a great comparison, but certainly in the lead up to January 6th and the lead up to the inauguration, the left put on the full court press of this will not stand. We're the resistance. We're going to be the ones fighting Trump at tooth and nail at every turn. And it's been crickets.
Yeah.
Thus far. Is the left just burned out here?
A couple of things here. You know, 8 years ago, Trump was abnormal in that era of American politics for constantly insulting people, just saying stuff that was made up and not rooted in reality. 8 years later, that's changed. There's more of that. So Democrats have to change with the playing field. Some of the stuff, it turns out, you know, look, there are some big changes in 2024. The election was incredibly consequential, and not always for the results and what happened on the campaign trail, but the Supreme Court just gave incredible new powers to the sitting president, whoever that sitting president is. All right. You know, we had Kim Whaley on the podcast not long ago talking about this. The presidential immunity is a new thing now. All right. So some of the tools, there's a very good piece. I forget who wrote it. I was reading it a couple of days ago about how you can't, a lot of people spend all this time waiting for others to handle Trump, waiting for others to do their stuff. The Mitch McConnells of the world. Is it Susan Collins? I think he's learned his lesson.
Mhm.
Well, I think they've learned their lesson, which is you can't sit to the side and hope somebody else will do it for you. The Justice Department, whoever, certainly not Alvin Bragg, who,
I mean, it could also be a strategy here that Democrats can look at this and just say Republicans are going to F this up on their own. So do we even really need to stand in the way?
I think that's a smarter play. I think you're starting to see some of that you're losing the center and the center left are changing. They're adapting, and the sort of the proper administration of governance, keeping government open, passing spending, even stopgap spending measures in Congress. I think Hakeem Jeffries is a different leader than Nancy Pelosi. You have, even the AOCs of the world have matured. They've been around for a long time now. Tactics are changing, and they're not going to be there to stand up the Republicans on these fights. They're not going to be there to prop them up anymore.
Who's going to fight? Who's going to fight?
Oh, what's there to fight about? Come on, man.
Tom, the news is official. Your Facebook feed is about to look like shit again.
Hey,
Mark
awesome.
Zuckerberg has joined the list of the capitulated to Trump by eliminating content moderation, now doing community notes, which I will admit has been probably the most effective thing of the Elon Musk Twitter era. The community notes have exposed some stupidity, even though he deletes community notes on his false posts, which is probably not kosher. But certainly they're gonna. They've kind of insinuated that they're going to allow politics back into the main feed algorithm. This is all way above my understanding of things, but certainly this is a way for Zuckerberg to say to the MAGAs, "You are welcome here."
Yeah,
and it's just more capitulation from tech, from business, from some of the leading people in this country that are just willing to say, "Walk all over us, Donald Trump and MAGA."
It was what was the Will Lewis, the one that was involved in the cell phone hacking, the members of parliament in UK under Murdoch, who is now the publisher of the Washington Post, and we've seen a large exodus from the Post, and that's tough, by the way, to see, because the Post has incredible reporters. I would argue that 99% of what we know about the most recent assassination attempt on a candidate and a former president, all right, and there's two of them, but one, actually, the actual shot almost killed the presidential candidate, is because of Washington Post reporter Carol Leonnig. All right, so that is a real threat, what's going on over there. But Will Lewis, and I've heard this too in newsrooms I've been in before. Will Lewis told one of the workers there, said, that's the Rupert Murdoch person that Jeff Bezos picked. He said, "What can we do to get Trump voters reading the Washington Post?" And the reporter, whoever it was, laughed, because clearly this is not somebody who understands it. Trump people are not going to read the Washington Post. You're barking up the wrong tree. All right, that's not going to happen. All right, I don't know, that's what he's thinking or why he's thinking that, but I do think here's my grounded optimism on this. Look, these guys are all businesses. All right, they respond to market forces. you can't have any media platform, no matter what it is, any media publisher, which is what these people are, with just a bunch of bots and sock puppets talking to each other, because that doesn't translate to money. So real people have been disconnecting from these places. And I think that the more that happens, the more that they will be forced to change and adapt to that reality again. I mean, and look, these guys it's corporate America. All right. Just because Mark Zuckerberg says he wants to have a cage fight with another mega CEO of a different publisher, all right, doesn't make it any less corporate. Okay. All right. It's corporate America. They move with the money. They move with the politics. It's always been that way.
Well, it's certainly a concern to see how some of our institutional media has just folded. Specifically the Post, but I mean the LA Times is another that did that. The Wall Street Journal has, I mean they've kind of been on thin ice anyway with facts, but and they're bringing in a couple of good reporters, so maybe they're turning a corner here. But I've certainly got concerns with our institutional media moving forward.
Well, that's
4 years.
That's why you got us. That's why.
Yeah, baby.
Come on. All right. I mean, that's why we're here.
All right. So, Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, for now, he was elected last week. It feels like his days are already numbered, Tom, at least to me. I'm interested in your take. You were in the Capitol that day. With amid all the drama. And certainly the pomp and circumstance and the chaos that reigns. I feel like it will only take one deal to keep government open, to do a foreign aid bill, to raise the debt limit, whatever it might be. It's going to take one deal that he cuts with Democrats that is key for whoever speaker it is ever to get anything done has to do things in a bipartisan fashion, especially when you've got a 3-vote majority.
Yeah.
At the moment, I don't see how he makes it through the summer with as cranky as his conference is.
Yeah.
I feel, I mean, maybe that's me being pessimistic. I think he probably makes it through the year, but man, it feels like he is dead man walking.
I think he's fine. I really do. And I'll tell you why. I was sitting there watching it, and there was a lot of talk about, this is going to be a replay of McCarthy 2 years earlier, which, went for like, dozens of votes or whatever it was, stretched over days. He's a different person. Mike Johnson is a very different person than Kevin McCarthy. McCarthy was ground to pieces because he was obsequious within the conference. If you talk with other Republicans, they'd tell you that, he'd make a lot of promises, wouldn't deliver. He was a wheeler dealer, but he wasn't very good at the constituent work of being a presiding officer, which is having good relationships with the members. I mean, I think we talked about this a little bit on the morning show on WMAY a couple of days ago. And you mentioned this about keeping the frogs in a wheelbarrow. Johnson's good at that, and he has the backing of Trump. This is that's yeah.
Trump will throw him overboard. Trump will toss him off at some point.
I don't think so, because who else are you going to take? That's the problem. And
he doesn't care. If you're not 100% loyal, if you cross Trump one time to send money to Ukraine or to keep the government open or to whatever it might have to be, whatever one thing they have to do that they can't get an Obamacare repeal done again. I mean, it's just going to take one thing for Trump to throw him overboard.
I disagree. I bet you a barrel of fricasseed frogs. All right. What? I don't even know what the hell that is.
Some Maryland thing?
Could be. I don't know, man.
A beef sandwich.
That's the kind of crap you find down in the Senate dining room. Okay.
Is that an dining room is actually kind of nice.
Oh, it's fancy, but it's built for old people. I go to the house side.
To be among the people. All right. We have Justin Robert Young, host of the Politics Podcast. Interesting conversation to bring in him. Okay.
Yeah, baby. Let's do it.
It's time to go in the huddle.
We are pleased to welcome Justin Robert Young. He hosts the Politics Podcast, and a fun host and voice in this political sphere. Justin, thanks for taking time, man.
Oh, it is an absolute honor and a pleasure to be with you boys.
All right, so here's where I want to start, and we'll see where our conversation goes. But I spent a part of the opening part of this podcast kind of frustrated with how the media is being distracted by Donald Trump's sort of flurry of bluster and BS. And Tom's going to be the defender of the media here because that's what he thinks he still is. But
hey man, dude, screw that, man. I'm a content creator.
He's a content creator now.
Influencer, Tom LoBianco.
You bet. but let's be clear. The Greenland thing, the Panama Canal thing, the Gulf of Mexico thing, the Canada is a 51st state thing. This is all distracting from the real stuff. The mass deportations, Pete Hegseth being dramatically unqualified, Robert Kennedy being a kook, Tulsi Gabbard probably being a Russian asset. This is all distracting the media with the latest shiny thing. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Well, I agree it probably should not be breathlessly covered. I agree that it is probably not going to happen. And I agree that the clickbait hysteria that comes along with provocative tongue-wagging topics like that are not substantive to the American public. I don't know if I agree with the motivation per se, that it is distracting from the stuff that you mentioned, although I do think that those are very interesting and topics that probably should be continued to be uncovered by the media. But I would go back to the idea that Donald Trump is who we thought he was, which is a man who, prior to his first term, made his money by licensing his name, and he kept the price high on licensing his name by staying in the media. Now, obviously, that was partly by the television show, but it was largely because he was able to say a thing about something that was also in the news that would get coverage. The second part is everything that Donald Trump does is a real estate negotiation. You can understand it clearer than anything else if you just understand that this guy is haggling for the price of concrete at every moment, no matter what he is doing and no matter how serious the stakes are, especially for people who follow politics. And so I am more inclined, I'm not saying that yours is wrong, but this is my personal headcanon. I am more inclined to agree that these are frivolous points, but they're not necessarily there to distract from this other stuff. They are there to set the table for other things that he wants to do, specifically when it comes to foreign relations, immigration, and trade deals. That's pretty much the things. When he talks about Panama, when he talks about Greenland, when he talks about Canada, he's really talking about what is Panama and the other Central American countries going to do for a border? What is the European body politic going to do for his idea of where NATO should be paying or how much European nations should be paying for NATO? And will Canada give us cheaper lumber? That's pretty much it. That's what he is doing with all of it. Now, I don't think that we need to fall for the okie doke, and I will put myself into the media bucket here. I don't on PX3 cover the Greenland stuff as if he's literally got Greenland in his Amazon cart and he's hovering on buy it now. I just think it's stuff that needs to play out, and we don't need to run to the shiny object every time he throws one out there.
Do you think, I was thinking back to these stories, Peter Baker and Susan Glasser wrote about Greenland and about the billionaire or mega donor Ronald Lauder pushing for that, the cosmetics heir.
Yeah.
And that reminded me of my constant advice to everybody, even more so now that we're going in for Trump 2.0, read Maggie Haberman's book. Read it. Read Confidence Man. Read that book. She talks about Ronald Lauder and Trump going back to the 80s. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a reminder, all the stuff that we forgot over 4 years of Biden, that like the last person in Trump's ear, for instance, we'll just float stuff, like a veritable Al Sharpton of a president, just kind of like throw stuff out there just to be in the mix.
Yeah, and that I think is in stark contrast to Biden, where I think we probably should have been covering the Biden administration more as if there were 7 different warlords with a barely there kind of thread in between them and Joe Biden, especially considering some of the reporting about his health. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Donald Trump is not an ideologue. He has never been an ideologue, and he has largely been successful now twice, the second time more than the first, because he was free of ideological underpinnings for the Republican Party. He was able to, in 2016, say, I am not for the Iraq war. That was revolutionary in the neoconservative dominated party that had existed before him and had become unpopular. In this term, he was able to even distance himself from some of the elements of his immigration past, for which he was made a political figure of. But he was able to do a thing that, let's say, a Pat Buchanan was not, which is to say, this is my driving force. I am here for it. And also, I want more Indians to come and work for Facebook.
What's your read on? I get this text very often from sources, from my handful of civilian friends who still give a crap about politics, and there's not that many of them. They ask.
We are in a valley. We're in a bit of an attention valley. I think people finally got burnt out. It was 8 solid years of just ripping line after line of politics, and now finally the debt has come due.
I kind of like it. I mean, it's back to being us nerds, which is the way it should have been.
I personally love it. I hope it's good for my money, but otherwise, I'm happy about it. I think I mostly just have the nerds anyway. I don't think I had a lot of the mainstream people.
Well, what's your take on this, on the relationship between Trump and Musk? Because it's not the same thing as Trump and Bannon. Bannon was more so beholden to Trump. Musk exists in his own orbit, even as he sticks close to Trump right now.
Well, they're very fascinating because you're right. Bannon needed Trump. Bannon still needs Trump. I mean, let's remember, kids ask your parents. Bannon was once Sloppy Steve and was exiled out of the MAGA camp. He was cast from the great gleaming red, white, and blue citadel that is the MAGA empire. And after a few sojourns to cash checks in Europe, he came back and is now the chief enforcer for the America First movement via his media outlets. So he needs Trump. Musk, in a lot of ways, doesn't. But they have found themselves in a coalition, of which Musk was very, very important. I mean, I do think that from my perspective, and I very much like to kind of look at the tactics and the X's and O's of campaigns almost more than anything else, what Musk did is going to be kind of a template for what mega donors can and should, very famous mega donors can and should do. If you compare him to, let's say, a Reid Hoffman on the other side, Reid Hoffman's playbook ran aground. He backed some things that turned out to be net negatives. He had to fire his dude who spends his money, Dmitry Melman, because he was too foaming at the mouth. I mean, I was one of the journalists that got the email saying hours after the Trump was shot in Butler to say that this was a false flag. And so, they funded a lot of the lawfare stuff and everything, where it's like that didn't play well. Musk used his fame and used some of the dirty tricks of campaign advertising to go forward. Anyway, that's all prologue. Right now, I think that they are, of course, we're headed to a breakup. The question is when, and the question is how amicable. Because at some point, Musk will wander off because he gets interested in something else.
Yeah.
We don't know what that something else is, but will it happen with Donald Trump calling him idiot Elon or some of the other names that he has called him in the past? Maybe. But
we're already starting to see those fractures, right? At least fissures.
Yeah.
Especially over the H-1B thing that, I mean, Musk is not real MAGA. Musk is like this tech bro MAGA that isn't one of the true red hat. We're here because we want to blow up everything about American politics. It's here are my handful of issues that I care about that Donald Trump is my conduit for. And at some point, Trump's going to be stuck in the middle of this huge fight between the Musk and the Peter Thiel tech bro side of things.
Yeah.
And the real MAGA, the real base of the Republican Party today, which is the isolationist, blow up government, don't spend $1 unless Donald Trump wants to blow up the deficit even more, because then it's fine with us because facts don't matter. But we're really, it feels like whatever this coalition is today is really at the end of the clock.
Well, I mean, that is kind of just the same old song, right? For any coalition, especially an expansive coalition. And there's no doubt that the coalition that elected Donald Trump is expansive, that eventually at a certain point, the lights come on and you look at who you were flirting with all night and you're like, oh, wait, really? Oh, okay. I gotta process that a little bit. And that's partly what's happening with like the H-1B visa thing. Although I will say that in the same way that I'm not going to cover everything that Donald Trump says about Greenland, I'm also not going to breathlessly cover every tweet of Laura Loomer. And this H-1B visa thing was, essentially a Laura Loomer versus Elon Musk Twitter fight that kind of expanded into the further reaches. I don't think that this one particularly has a lot of policy implications. Donald Trump came out for H-1B visas during the campaign, so I don't think that he is in a situation where that is, and where he's going to reverse course on that. And also, in the grand scale of immigration conversations, H-1B visas are only really an issue now because we're in tech winter and people are hypothetically thinking about what happens with tech. And there are going to be changes now that AI is here on exactly how many coders are hired, and maybe we do see more of an abuse of it. And the program does need some elements of reforming. But really, we're talking about people that are getting $110,000 a year jobs. So like the Bernie Sanders argument of like, oh, well, they're indentured slaves that are coming over here and working for peanuts. It stretches credulity a little bit for me, but so does the idea that these are jobs that would go to Americans.
To be fair, 110 is minimum wage in Silicon Valley.
Trust me, brother. I mean, there's a reason why I'm in Texas and not in Oakland. It is expensive if you are living in Soma, but if you're living the engineer's life working at one of the companies on Market Street, then you're probably eating ramen every day. Like, if you are malnourished, it's because you're an engineer. It's not because you don't have money for food.
Soylent Green is people.
Oh, I mean, I'll tell you what, brother. Yeah, you ain't kidding. But I do think that, look, this coalition is going to fracture. All coalitions that are expansive do fracture because at a certain point, you don't care as much about things in the offseason as you do in the prime time. So, like, that is the case. Will Musk go down with the ship? If it comes down to, I think, the reasons that he actually kind of crossed the line and went into hardcore politics, which were, he felt frozen out by the Biden administration, who did not want to include Tesla in a lot of the EV stuff that they were doing because he's not a union shop. That he obviously had issues with free speech that he has spent money and time on, oftentimes ridiculously so, when he just becomes a S poster. But like, I think if Trump falls afoul of those, then we're going to see a big messy breakup. I don't know how much the credit game, which is where a lot of attention tends to go, is like, okay, well, are we going to say that Trump's the brilliant man or Musk is the brilliant man. And if credit goes here, then the other one is going to say that they want it here. Certainly, these are two of the biggest egos on the planet, so you can't discount it. But I don't know if that's going to be the thing that leads to a big breakup.
It's interesting to me, though, how Trump is going to actually govern this time around. You know, the first iteration was flat out chaos the whole time, because you had the establishment people, the Bushies that were still around, that Pence's people brought in, that were essentially the only people who knew how government worked, and now it's going to be fully on the MAGA folks, right? The fully on people that are part of whatever institution they've been building now over the last 8 years. And now they know more about what they're going to do. And that's either going to be bad in the sense that they're going to do bad things, or bad in the sense that they're going to potentially screw it up even more than they did the first time. But I'm interested in your take as to, I think chaos will reign the day. We've already seen that with this razor thin majority in the House. What do you think we're going to see?
Well, this has been a fascination of mine too, so I'm really glad you brought it up. I mentioned, or I will talk more about it on the Friday edition of my podcast, that I do think people should open up your mind to the idea that this Trump administration, far more than the 45th, will be competent, meaning that they will know how to put their left foot in front of their right foot and continue to walk forward.
That's a big ask for me, buddy, to think that they're going to be competent.
But here's the reason why. Here's the reason why. Because the campaign was so much different than 2016 and 2020. And if you follow those campaigns, you understood that we didn't see the hallmarks of the chaos that came with the campaigns of 2016 and 2020 very much were indicative of what happened at the 45th. If the competency of the 2024 campaign is indicative, and we've seen some things that are part of it, including the fact that, like, Matt Gaetz came, Matt Gaetz went. To Tom's point, normally that comes with a Maggie Haberman article that explains second by second who said what to where and how everything fell apart, with big juicy quotes that'll probably be the headline of the story. You can't do this to me. How Matt Gaetz came and went from the attorney general, right? That was what we expected from the Trump administration. We haven't heard anything. He came, he went, he's on One American News, we're done. Pam Bondi's going to be the AG. That is way more buttoned up than it's ever been in the past. Susie Wiles is probably the linchpin to it. But if that's the case, then we're going to see a lot more like we saw with that speaker election, which very well could have been an absolute, at its worst, a Kevin McCarthy 2-day extravaganza. At a more manageable expectation, something like what the Democrats did to Nancy Pelosi when they wanted to show that they were still there and they made her wait 2 ballots to give her the gavel. It wasn't like that. It went about as efficiently as you could with that mini margin. If we see more like that, then yes, this is going to be markedly more competent than it was in 2016.
But the problem with that is anytime there's been a grown-up in the room thus far, they eventually get thrown out.
I'm gonna interject, Patrick.
Yeah, please.
It's Susie. It is.
It's Susie.
She's going to get thrown out. She's going to get thrown overboard.
No, she's not. I will.
She might leave. She might leave.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Exactly. She could go of her own accord. But I'll bet $100 million right here. I'll bet you 1 Greenland and 2 Panama canals. Okay. All right. No, she's going to be around for a long time, because she has been around for a long time, because she doesn't steal the spotlight. She knows how to manage up for Trump. Her team is the one in the White House right now. She understands the factions of Trump world, because she has been integral in Trump world for years and years, even going back prior to 2016. Susie gets this incredibly so. And to understand how this happened, look back to the Matt Gaetz thing. If you believe the reporting on it, it was Boris Epstein in a moment of lucidity while Susie Wiles was in another part of the airplane, who said, "Yeah, let's do Matt Gaetz." And it's like, fine, all right, let's do Matt Gaetz. Susie came back, according to my sourcing, about a month later and whacked Boris, because Boris
Yeah.
later was going out there and saying, "Hey, you need to hire
shaking the money trees. Yeah.
Right, exactly." So it was all taken care of very, very quickly. But another reason why you don't see, I mean, Susie and that team, which is a very tight knit team, is a big part of why you don't see a lot of the drama in Trump world right now. The drama's still there, but the other reason you don't see the drama is because it doesn't click. It doesn't sell like it used to. People aren't interested in it. They know there's drama. That's not new. Insanity inside Trump world is not new. It's still there. It just doesn't. The incentive for those of us in the press, inside old legacy.
But the product isn't as good. The product used to be just hang out at the right bars in DC, and these insane stories and insane quotes would just fall into your lap, right? Because it was so undisciplined and everybody did not trust each other, and you had open warfare inside the cabinet. Now there is one person who has access to Trump, and she guards it very effectively. And she is pretty ruthless about if you fall afoul of her.
Right.
There's a reason why Trump calls her the Ice Maiden, because if you are on the other side, then it's
I'm just so skeptical that sticks. I'm so skeptical that sticks.
I would be too. I would. I mean, look, when the rubber hits the road, the opposite to anything I've said is that we're a week away from inauguration.
Yeah.
And when the rubber hits the road, and when all of a sudden Chip Roy isn't just being, his normal effervescent self on television, but now he's holding up your ability to pass a tax cut or pass a border thing, then maybe things get more hectic. And maybe Donald Trump, to your point, says, Susie, you're not doing it right. I'm not getting anything done. Why, stop preventing Rudy Giuliani from calling me. I need the real people. Bring me back Sidney Powell. She's the one who can actually get things done.
But wait, maybe that happens. Can't get in the Oval. I mean, that's when shit's going to get crazy. Is when Stephen Miller and it gets back to Bannon, and then you've got the MAGA warfare that starts to open up. Then you got JD Vance, who's probably got a shank in his left hand already, trying to take this guy out. I mean, the warfare will be there. Right. The from day one,
and the warfare to a large extent kind of exists in every presidency. Where I mean, the question is exactly how much you channel it and how much you use it going forward. Right. Yeah. And that was what was remarkable about the Biden administration, is that you didn't have a whole lot of warfare because they were all operating in their own separate fiefdoms, and none of them should meet, right? Because there was never, I mean, there was like 4 cabinet meetings in the 4-year term of Joe Biden. Everybody was kind of operating in a satellite, which is why no one got fired, which was the other thing, is that no matter what happened, nobody got canned, because a warlord can't can another warlord. The president would have to do it. So yes, there will be chaos. There's no doubt.
Well, they did put out Ron Klain. Remember that? Halfway through the through the term, he was kind of the odd man out in a lot of that.
Yeah, and he just got back to tweeting gas prices.
Oh, okay, yeah,
that was his favorite thing to do, is tweet out gas prices when they're good, which is a smart idea.
Yeah.
Before we let you go, Justin, I want to talk about Mike Johnson, who had this really, and Tom was at the Capitol, I sure wasn't, but it was this perilous moment where you thought, holy shit, he's going to lose this thing.
Yeah.
And they end up saving it, right? At the very last second. I feel like his days are numbered already. I tweeted when Kevin McCarthy finally won that he'll be out by the end of the year, and he was.
Yes.
I don't know that Johnson will be out by the end of the year, but man, I have a hard time believing he's there by midterms.
There's no doubt that any person who has that thin of a majority is going to have a problem, especially with a party that has already found it expedient to kick a speaker out. I have often thought of Mike Johnson like Tim Robbins' character in the Hudsucker Proxy. He was just somebody that was pulled up into that position, not because he had worked for it, not because he was a great fundraiser or any of the reasons why you normally get the Speaker of the House. It's because he didn't have 3 people that hated him, whereas everybody else in the House Republican conference did. That being said, I looked at that election very differently. I saw a lot of people that are very, very out there and very free with how much they do or don't like Mike Johnson not vote for somebody else on the first ballot. They just held their tongue. I saw 2 people that voted for somebody else. And at that point, in my mind, you're probably going to get it on the second ballot if that's the only thing. If you have 12, 13, 14 people that are voting for somebody else, now we're locked into a Kevin McCarthy thing. I think that Johnson and Trump worked really well together, and the coordination that happened between the White House and the Speaker, I think, was pretty ruthlessly effective considering the situation. That being said, if Donald Trump decides that the Speaker Johnson is not the man to move his agenda forward, and Jim Jordan is, or Nancy Mace is, or somebody else who is there, Marjorie Taylor Greene is, then Johnson will be in the air because the ejector button will have been hit and he will have flown into the Washington, D.C. sky.
I'm looking forward to that, frankly. The look on his face, he's so staid compared to everybody else in Trump's orbit. He's kind of he's the straight man to the insanity in that joke, you know?
Yeah, when he was out with the rest of the Trump rat pack at the UFC walkout that happened right after the election. I think it was Mary Catherine Ham.
How out of place.
Well, yeah, it was funny. Mary Catherine Ham, the conservative commentator, said that she very much related to him as being the band geek who hangs out with the cool crowd afterward. like he had just folded his band uniform and then went to the party. That was the vibes. And certainly that's the case. That being said, and Tom, you've covered the Hill far more than I have. I don't know what you're supposed to do when you have a 3-vote majority. Like I think if anybody hated Mike Johnson, like really, really had a loathing for him, the worst thing you could do to that man was elect him speaker, because that is the worst job in Washington.
That is why Paul Ryan said he left.
Yeah, this sucks.
Yeah.
I worked a campaign in 2012 where John Boehner came and spoke, and he talked about the job of speaker is keeping 218 frogs in a wheelbarrow. And yeah, I use that story a lot, but it's so true. And now literally Johnson has to keep all but 3 in the wheelbarrow at all times. It's unbelievable. So we're going to have to leave it there. Justin Robert Young, where do we find your stuff?
Politics, wherever you find podcasts. And I'm also on YouTube at the same name, Politics.
Justin, we appreciate it. You're the man.
Thank you very much, boys.
Thanks,
brother. It's time for the second half.
All right, Tom, Q&A. Find us on Twitter. Find us on Blue Sky. Send us a note. Drop us an email, all that stuff. Put a comment here on the YouTubes. Let's start with this. Does Donald Trump pardon the January 6th convicts?
No.
You don't think he will?
I don't think he's going to do it. I think he'll come up with some excuse why Joe Biden reached his hand out of the political grave to make him stop, or some deep state crap. But I don't think he does it because it's unpopular.
I don't know that the Bible that he is sworn in on will be put down on a table yet before he signs those pardons.
Okay.
Because the revisionist history of January 6th from the right is absolute bullshit.
It is.
Absolute bullshit.
It is.
And I think that they're going to try and make these people look like martyrs. I mean, they're talking about Ashley Babbitt, who they're talking like she was an innocent bystander when she was shot by police on January 6th. She was literally trying to break into the House chamber to overthrow the government.
Right. Yeah.
That's justifiable if I've ever seen it.
Yeah. She was breaking through a window in the House lobby, trying to crawl through the window. All right. It's a window about yay big. All right. And she had the line of people, and they're smashing the glass. And I've never seen, look, I've been working at the Capitol for years now, all right, as a reporter, and I've never seen cops draw their guns there, ever, all right?
Unbelievable.
And that's the level of seriousness it was. I mean, to have...
It would have killed Mike Pence. They would have killed Mike Pence. They would have killed Nancy Pelosi. I fully believe that.
Absolutely. They had people rappelling off the balcony in the chambers. Okay. All right. That's fucking crazy. All right.
Prepared.
And criminal. Yeah. Criminal.
As we record this on January 8th, Jimmy Carter lies in state at the U.S. Capitol. His funeral, I think, is Thursday the 10th or the 9th. Thursday the 9th. Yep. Carter was out of office before I was born. I was born in 83, so I was in the Reagan term. I think you're not that much older.
Yeah, I'm 81.
81. So we didn't live through Carter.
No.
You did a great interview with John Ward that we posted over my little baby break. Any takeaways on Jimmy Carter's legacy?
You know, he was, and then Ward talked about this. And if you guys haven't yet, check out John Ward's book. It's called Camelot's End. It's about the 1980 Democratic primary between Ted Kennedy and Jimmy Carter. And one of the great revelations in there is that Carter was an incredibly astute and clever politician who, not unlike Mike Pence, right? If you believe the Donald Trump MAGA version of things, Pence was a snake, all right, who stole their election, all right? Like he stole it away for whatever reason, all right? So if you believe that version of things, then it's easy to see some comparisons here where Carter would put on the cardigan, you know, and be very soft-spoken, but was very clever politically, all right? Same thing with Mike Pence. Mike Pence, you know, puts on the boring robotic face, the very stern and serious. Yeah. Somewhere it's a slight tilt of the head and a little bit of a twitch that's somewhere between W and Reagan, and a little bit more stilted. It's good to see you, Patrick. Pence's retail is always great. He really was. He's always been very good at retail. Governing, not so much. But you know, don't underestimate. And I think we've been seeing some of that in the reevaluations afterwards. Also speaks to a different time. You know, back then Reagan was a beneficiary of the gatekeepers of mass media, which doesn't exist anymore, because back then Reagan and his folks were able to paint Carter as a loser, you know, to use Trump's wording, all right, you know, weak and whatnot. Then that really wasn't the case. So, and we're starting to see a lot of that now. So it was great. I've worked with Ward many times over the years at the Washington Times, and then over at Yahoo News. He's a great reporter. So if you guys haven't yet, you can find it on our YouTube page, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to us. It's the last episode before this one. So just rewind back one episode and you'll get it. And then he's a great reporter.
What I'll say about Jimmy Carter is he is proof that you can be a great man and a bad president at the same time.
Perhaps because of it.
Yeah, and maybe those are related. I mean, I think I think history will probably treat George H.W. Bush a little better than Carter as terms of a president. But even though he didn't have a successful term, Carter certainly didn't have a successful term with inflation, with the Iran crisis, etc. History looks back on them both as great men. And I certainly I'm as someone who is a conservative, but not a Republican anymore, I want good people to win. Yeah. Because good people are generally going to make good decisions. Yeah. Whether they're the right decisions, I don't know, but they're going to make good decisions. And you know, George H.W. Bush, Jimmy Carter, good people. Yeah. And I want more good people in government. Yeah. Amen, baby. All right. Last one comes from Patrick from Chicago.
Not Tom, you. That's not you, Patrick.
Dad. I am a girl dad now.
Oh, what's up?
Any advice for the girl dad?
Oh, boy. Get ready for some emotional and psychological warfare. All right. You are about to get worked very hard, my man. And you will say yes to all of it. and she will love you all the more for it. No, you're gonna do great, man. I'm so happy for you guys.
The 3-year-old boy is already doing that psychological warfare, so I'm sure it's only going to be double that when we get to it.
You know, when my little girl was a baby, I used to toss her up in the air and catch her and play with her on the bed. And I miss that a lot, man. I'm really happy for you and Katie, man.
Now she's like, Dad, you're embarrassing me.
We're not there yet. We're not there yet. Thank God.
Well, you can see the bags under my eyes are only getting worse. As you can imagine, we're a little sleepy around here, but we're doing our best. So, all right, that's all the time we have. Find us on Twitter at ground_game_pod. Find us on Blue Sky. Find Tom on Blue Sky. I'm on Blue Sky, but I don't really I don't get it. It's a very echo chamber thing for me. I'm
in
still
that
tweeting.
world,
I'm
not
still
of that
tweeting.
world.
I'm still tweeting.
That's cool, man. We got all the bases covered.
It's my world.
Yeah.
Find us where you find your podcasts: Facebook or YouTube, Apple, Spotify.
We're uncensored on Meta.
All that stuff.
Or maybe we'll be censored because we believe in free speech on Meta.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a very meta question.
He's Tom. I'm Patrick. Thanks so much for listening to us on the Ground Game Podcast.